This is his second term as a representative. He ran in 2010, won that election in 08 for District 08. Now he's our representative. So the purpose of this meeting, this is a listening meeting, and he wants to hear from you. So the way this is going to work is we're going to go around the room, and hopefully I've got you all prepared that you can ask one question or make a statement. And there's going to be a lot of repeat. We're going to be covering a lot of the same issues. Once we've gone through everybody, and if anyone has a second issue they want to bring up, if we have time, we do that. Then the congressman is going to kind of summarize, pull those all together, and then if there's time, there may be some discussion. Everybody understand the ground rules? Now, this is a friendly crowd, unlike some of the crowds he's been experiencing lately. We don't have any SEIU folks in here, I don't think. Checking at the door. But when someone's talking, whether it's someone from the audience or from him, I don't want anyone else talking. Listen. And that's where we're all going to learn, is by listening from each other. So let me first introduce the congressman. Representative Daniel Webster. Dear Congress.
Thank you, dear. I will tell you this. I have a little brochure with me. I hope you'll pick up one of these. This is what I'll open with. Just the fact I lead two lives. I work in Washington and I do that. Then we also have a district here we need to serve. You people interact as all our constituents do with the federal government. It's a $3.6 trillion business. And I'm sure when you call them, they answer the phone and just answer your question. Everything's fine. But that doesn't always happen. And so we are aggressive about constituent services. We can cover everything from passports to Social Security, VA, and other things. And we can intervene. When we intervene and do a congressional inquiry, they have to answer us. So you may not have gotten an answer, you need an answer. Some people get to the point they just want to know yes or no. They've given up on just yes. They just answer. And we can do that. And we can get them to answer. They have to answer in a certain period of time. And so if you want us to intervene, we can. I'm going to give you two examples just to whet your appetite of the hundreds of times we have done this for many, many of our constituents. There was a couple traveling to Miami to leave on vacation, international vacation. They're headed down there. They're looking at the passports. Everything's okay. Then they looked at their child's passport and figured out that children's passports only last 5 years, not 10, and it was expired. But they're leaving. They're going to leave out of Miami International Airport. So they called our office. They asked if we get an appointment with the passport office in Miami. Yes, we got that. So they're headed there. Well, then they get stuck in traffic on 995. They're not going to be there. The door locks it. And this is the federal government, so the door locks at 4 o'clock. We get them on the phone and tell them, you've got to stay open. And so they locked the front door. They kept the back door open. They were willing to do that, so we kept them on the line. Then, when they got to Miami, they were doing the parade for the Miami Heat for winning the championship. All the roads are blocked off. And so they were going to be later. So we're telling them, don't shut the door. Let them come. So they got there. They finally get there. They were late. They took them in. Then they were missing a photo. So I said, our people just said, just let them go down to CVS and take a picture. So they did do that. They went down to CVS. They took the picture. They came back. They got it. They got the passport, and they left for Miami International Airport. I don't think that just an average person could make that work, but we were able to help them out, and we could stay on the phone with them until they actually did it. And then just another one, we don't do tax forms, 1040s, but we can help. If there's something that you think you should have gotten a deduction, you just to get them to look again, get the IRS to look again, we can do that. So there was a couple, and they had filled out their income tax. The IRS denied an exemption for them. So they paid their money, but they went back over it and decided, hey, this really is, well, I think we're right. So he called us and asked us to get the IRS to look at it one more time. So we did. We intervened for them. They looked looked at it, and they ended up agreeing with them. And they sent them a check for $40,000. I can't do that every time. But there's a time. So there's a couple examples of things. We've got others that are even longer, more involved, but we can help. So you say, well, I may not need it. Well, take it, because a lot of times people have told others. There may be somebody who's lost, the Veterans Administration lost them. And we've intervened and got to find them again and got it all worked out, got the benefits going again. There are others who have lost, did not receive the medal that they deserved. And they got back from Iraq or Afghanistan and just didn't get it. They lost the paperwork, couldn't figure out who to call. They called us. We were able to intervene to get it. So there's lots of things. I just tell you, take one of these. You may need it. We got our 4 offices here, 2 in Lake County, 1 in Orange County, 1 down in Polk County. And we're there, we're ready, we'll service you. And if not, then tell your neighbor, because they probably have a problem. Who knows? Well, anyway, what I'd like to do is just go around and we'll just start down the row, and you can ask or say whatever you want to say. And then in the end, try to sum up all the questions that you've asked and receive. But it really helps me to hear from people. We talk all the time. I'm in a profession that loves microphones. If you ever watch the C-SPAN, you're probably bored if you are, because it's pretty boring. But you notice the room is empty, and they're still talking. We still talk. I mean, we get a microphone, we talk, nobody's even here to listen. So this is the time where we listen. So we're going to go down and let everybody have a say. I'll sit down for at least now.
Okay, I've got the microphone. I'm going to give it to George. He's going to come up with the best question of the day. And then we're going to go just back and forth like this. I'll pick up the microphone at the end, and then I'll let the congressman respond.
Okay, thank you. George Fazio, thank you for coming, Congressman. My question is, do you think they'll really close the borders if they pass, and when they pass, immigration reform?
I'm just gonna listen.
I'm glad you're a communicator, that's for one thing. I recently have been reading and listening to a candidate about Mark Levin and his new book concerning the way that people outside of the DC circuit can take back and make the government the way the founding fathers intended. Are you familiar with Mark Levin's new book?
I want to answer these questions.
Oh, later, okay. Anyway, that's my question, because it's very inspirational to my way of thinking. And I know that a lot of us have been less than inspired since
We may be getting too late.
Okay, speaking about the party, are we going to be able to get together by 2014, even 2016, in a unified way? That's about it.
I was curious as the status of the new VA hospital, and if they've gotten that back on track yet.
I think the Republican Party would get a lot more votes from women if they weren't anti-abortion.
I understand Obama is pushing the climate change, and he wants to go around Congress. At least that's what I'm hearing on Fox News, and I want to know what Congress is going to do about that.
I'm dead set against Obamacare, but it seems like these constant votes to defund it by the Republicans are just turning a lot of people off. And it doesn't seem like the GOP has an answer. I mean, there have been different plans put forth, like the Ryan plan and so forth, but it seems like they should have a consolidated answer to what is the alternative to Obamacare. Otherwise, they just look like obstruction.
Yeah, I just ditto the Obamacare comments.
My question's about the Affordable Care Act. And I just got this today from my orthopedic doctor in Tampa. And their concern is about how what is it called? The Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services are considering steep cuts in Medicare reimbursement for total knee and hip. And as our age, there are a lot of people who are going to be needing these things in the future. And I think that is a very serious problem. Thank you.
I just kind of want to add something to the Obamacare comments. I would like to understand why the people that we put into office think Obamacare is for us, but it isn't for them. It's very upsetting.
I hear there's panels all through Congress investigating various scandals, the IRS, all these different ones that come up, Benghazi. There are lots of talk. I never hear an answer. I wonder why.
What I can't understand is why visible people in the Republican Party keep chastising each other.
Since the House is in charge of the funds, why do they fund all of Obama's Solyndras and Congress's wasteful projects?
I would like to know if you're for term limits.
I'm Kevin March, I'm retired Air Force. When I flew in Vietnam with the Vietnamese Air Force. I have a message that I'd like you to take back to your fellow people up there in Washington. Remember the story about the little Dutch boy? He saw the hole in the dike. He put his finger in it. He stopped it. If he hadn't done that, it had been overrun with a flood. But he had the good sense to do that. He didn't go home and go to bed and talk to his father about it and decide what to do. He stopped it and he saved Holland from being flooded. And I think it's the same way as George might say too. The border has got to be closed down. Once you get that done, then you can worry about all the other stuff. I know it's all part of one package, but you got to shut that border down. So carry that back. I don't want to see any more people who aren't little Dutch boys up there in Washington.
I would like to add to the business of the immigration law, because I understand when you get back to the House, it's going to be on your table, isn't that right? It has passed the Senate. And in that case, I would like to know what your standing is going to be on it. That will help us guarantee not only that we get the border closed, but we have enough people hired to enforce the border. Because building a fence doesn't keep them out unless you've got manpower to back it up, to arrest the people and do something with them. And we have friends that live within sight of the fence in Arizona, and their pasture is littered still with people who climb the fence and go right through their pasturage, and there's nobody there to report to or to stop them. So I'd like to know if you plan to vote for it, this bill like it is, or if you think you could do something to tighten it up about the border part. Thank you.
I would just like to see the Republican Party have a consensus and have a public unity. This constant inter-party bickering and arguing and just kind of fighting each other is just self-defeating. And we're always shown to be the obstructionists or the ones that are party of no. And I would just like to see the party come together and present a more united front on many areas.
You know, the thing I gotta say is, I'm not too happy with the Republican Party. And I could go on and on some of the stuff that's been going on. I don't know what's been going on in the circle of Washington, but they live in fairyland down here. Come out here and see us. We'll tell them what to do. Thank you.
I would like them to do something about investigating the news media. It seems that they're so one-sided in all the reporting, and we have no real basis to judge stuff with.
I'd like to know where you stand on the road to citizenship in the immigration bill.
I understand that you have a budget plan that's to protect and preserve Medicare and have no changes to Social Security. And I'm just wondering what that is and how in the world is it going to be affected by Obamacare? And are there a lot of Republicans behind that?
Okay, I'll take my turn. Obamacare is an issue I think a lot of us are looking at. We know that recently Obama gave Congress and their aides a pass. They don't have to pay for Obamacare, whereas we do. The president is not covered by Obamacare. So Representative, what I would like for you to do when you get back, submit a bill that Congress, all the aides, the president, the vice president, the IRS union, everyone in government is covered by Obamacare. And let's see who votes against that. Because, like been expressed here before, people are upset with the ruling class making laws that they don't have to follow. And that's got to stop.
You asked.
Okay, well, thank y'all. And by the way, I am here. I'm here to listen to what you got to say. It's important. I'll start with Obamacare. How about that? First of all, I want to tell you I can do guilt-free health care reform. I can. I've never taken one dime's worth of federal health insurance. I don't take the subsidy. I buy my own, just like everybody else. So I don't deal with the health care issue in the way others do because I don't keep it. So am I going to take whatever they offer at now? No, I didn't take what they offered before because of several reasons. One is that it's subsidized and it's about 75% of it's paid for by the federal government, and that's fine. So I don't do it. Here are some of the things about it. First of all, the reason that there is that Congress is now getting exempt is because there was a secret meeting, closed-door meeting between the president and the senators who actually put it in the bill. And when they came out, they announced something. Now I'm going to tell you what I've tried to do about that, because it's a little bit of a lengthy explanation, but it's very important. Number one, none of these are, I know a lot of people believe that these are executive orders. They're not. They're not executive orders. Obama keeps one step away from that. There are laws. They're in the statute book. They're the federal code. Underneath that, there are rules that are written to supplement those laws, and the department gets that writes those rules get their authority usually from the underlying legislation that was passed. So they pronounce rules. They go out for public comment. There are other challenges that can happen. Eventually, they finally publish the final rule. And when they do that, then it becomes like law. Then, underneath that is something that most members of Congress and the public don't know anything about. When I was in the state legislature for many years, here's what happened. When the Democrats controlled the state legislature, they had the same thing. They had the statute book, then they had the rules, just like they do, and those are all challengeable, and you can go to court, and so forth, and even sometimes get them overturned. And then there was what they called working papers. And those working papers went along with those documents, and they basically almost rewrote, let's say, the budget back when I was in the legislature. I stopped it after we gained control, but before then, they rewrote the laws. And they had all these things that they would do, and a lot of them would say, yeah, after session ends, we're going to use the working papers, and we're going to rewrite the budget. And they would do it. Well, in the federal government, they call them guidance documents. So if you were to read about the, if you read about the fact that the president turned the corner on what was required by the law in Obamacare on, let's say, the corporate mandate, that's now been delayed. If you read what they did, it says they gave guidance. It's a guidance document. If you read about the fact that the cap on out-of-pocket expenses for each of the policies that were going to be out on the exchange was $2,000, and now they just did away with that, guidance document. And what they did behind closed doors for the members of Congress was issue a guidance document that said they were going to get their 75% subsidy. Now, before that ever happened, Garrett is here, and we were working on an issue called a guidance document issue. And there came a bill, and a bill came along about rules and regulations. And my little guidance document amendment fit. It didn't quite fit, but we were able to convince people that it should fit. So what that says is that if there's a major document like the ones we're talking about, if those are published, then they have to come back to Congress to be approved before they become effective. And that amendment ended up passing on that bill. You know what the chairman of the committee that was doing the bill asked me before, when I was explaining to him? He goes, "What's a guidance document?" Nobody knows about it. I bet you've never heard those words before. Yeah. Most members of Congress, I would say 99% of members of Congress have never heard about a guidance document. So that passed, the bill passed. So now it's down in the Senate. It just happened just before we left for break. And that's my overall answer, because it's not just the fact that he's allowing members of Congress to get insurance. That's bad enough. But there are other things where they, where this bill is not anymore the Affordable Care Act. Here's why. It's not affordable. It's not care. It doesn't give care. It has nothing to do with giving care. It rations care. And it's not an act. Now the president treats it as a suggestion. So it's not an act, it's just a suggestion. If he wants to follow it, he does. If he doesn't, he doesn't. And I could go into all the reasons why the things that I just mentioned have been, they've used guidance documents to change those, and there's a lot of reason behind that. Maybe I'll get to it, I don't know. All I can tell you is that those guidance documents have got to go. And the idea of a president or anybody else, administrator, head of a department, cabinet member, it doesn't matter, if they can use a document not vetted in the public, not challengeable in the public, to change law, then we need to have it. We need to be reviewing that and not allow it to be effective until we approve it. Well, I will tell you in brief what they did to make it the subsidy available for members of Congress that circumvents Obamacare and gets them off Obamacare was a butchery of the law. If I had been in Congress, I would not have voted for Obamacare, but it is the law, and if they can do it in one law, they could do it in all kinds of other laws, and that's the problem. There was a provision that said this, and I don't know if I can even explain it, but it said, basically, current law notwithstanding. That means, okay, so any law that exists out there, you disregard that. Here is the plan for the Congress, and that is they're under Obamacare. So there's a current law that says they get subsidized federal insurance. That goes away because of that provision that said, any other law notwithstanding, forget all of those. Here's what they did. So that meant that if we were under it, they took those same words and made it to where we were able to circumvent and not be in that plan. And here's what they said. They said, well, it says in the law, the new Affordable Health Care law, that no employer can subsidize any portion of a person who buys insurance off of the exchange. None of that can be subsidized by their employer. Which means, if you're a federal employee, then you can't have, if you're a member of Congress, you can't have, because you're on the exchange, you can't have the Congress and the federal government subsidizing your policy. That's what it means. That's pretty standard. I mean, anybody can figure that out. Here's what they did. They took that provision and said, well, because that provision's in there, that means that the Affordable Care Act, which we now say is current law, is now disregarded, so that since Congress, any law notwithstanding, since it says you can't get a subsidy, well, that law gets negated too. That's not what that means. It isn't. But that's what they did. So it pushes aside that requirement, and now they can get a subsidy from the federal government. I'm only telling you that to show you this is how goofed up we are. It's awful. And I know everybody says, why aren't you doing something? Get out there, get a message out there. Why can't we unite? Just know, the press is not our friend. They're not going to report the things that we're talking about. So when you hear we're not doing anything on these issues, just know we are. But they're not going to say it. They're not. And so the only thing they're looking for is a division. Somebody to say something against another Republican, and that's the only thing they report. So you think, wow, this is widespread. All the Republicans are against each other. And they're not. And it's widespread. They don't do anything. And we are. And let me give you an example. If you take the IRS scandal, it would never have been an issue had not our oversight committee, a year and a half ago, started saying, hey, we're getting a lot of calls about the IRS giving a rough time to certain groups that want a tax exemption, which would be a not-for-profit 501c4. No way, no possible way. We've never done that. We would never do that. But we kept on them and on them and on them. And finally, they admitted that it was 2 rogue employees in Cincinnati. That's what they admitted first. So we're meeting, we're doing these meetings, and so nothing, now we have that. Well then, those people come forward. We have them come and testify. And one of the rogue employees pleads the Fifth Amendment because they're afraid they know they've done something criminal. Or at least they think that, I guess. That's why they did it. I don't know. I won't judge their motive. So there have already been 2 people fired. There's 1 person that's on leave. And that's little, but it's some. I mean, we're getting there. These people would not have been fired or anything had we not continually just hammered away, even though it was like beating against a brick wall. So then the people come in, and now they're pointing to Washington. Well, then we find out in Washington, it starts moving up the ladder, and now you get to the general counsel for the IRS. It didn't stop there. We kept asking and asking and asking. So now we have these emails that connect it to the Federal Election Commission. So IRS was sending this information between themselves and FEC. Then we found the connection between that and the Securities Exchange Commission. Now what does it all add up to? And are we done? No, absolutely not. Now we can't fire anybody, but we are going to make it so rough that they're going to feel it. They know these are not phony phony is what the word's been used, scandals. They're real, and they know they're real. And we're going to keep hammering and hammering and hammering. It takes a while. We do two things, our committees. One is we make policy. Second is we do oversight. But oversight takes a while. But we have gotten all the way down this road, and now we understand at least what the mission was, and that was free speech. It was to limit free speech, which is a constitutional right in this country. Why do they want to limit free speech? Because they don't like people that are against them. So the IRS, through the Securities and Exchange, put pressure on companies who hire people that are on this list of people, or give money to organizations who were trying to get a tax exemption, and say, we're going to audit you, we're going to press on you, we don't want you doing it. And they don't mention the fact that the reason they're doing it is because of this chain connection. And the same with the FEC and candidates and who they're supporting and what's happening with them, and the IRS, who are looking solely, so now you hear, oh, they did it to everybody. No, they did not. Do not believe that, but that's what the press is going to tell you, and that's what the Democrats will say. This is really just, they did it to everybody. No, every single progressive group had theirs approved. There are over half that have still not approved by conservative groups. They weren't just one, like the Tea Party or something like that. It wasn't just that. It was churches, other groups who were audited. There was a group in Orlando that came to see me, and that's when we were first thinking about it. This was a year and a half ago. And they wanted me and Marco Rubio to do a promo for their little group they were starting called something like Liberty and Freedom or something. Well, those are bad words. So they turned it in, and they had this big meeting, and it was kind of the kickoff, and it was really good. And I sent in a video and got it approved by ethics so I could do that. And I never heard another thing about it. Just kind of ended. Well, here, when this stuff started coming out, they came forward. What happened was they got these questionnaires back saying, why did you pick this person for your executive director? Who were the other people considered? What is their political philosophy? What's their worldview? What are they? I mean, just on and on, page after page of questions that they should not be asking. And they didn't ask anybody else. So, what happened with that was, it was a guy who was hired to be the CPA to turn in all the information to the IRS so they could get that exemption. Well, he wasn't necessarily a part of the inner circle of them. He was just a CPA. And so a week after he turned that in, he was audited for the first time in his life. It cost him $18,000. He just wanted out. He dropped, I don't want to be in this. I'm out. And so those are the things that happened, but we didn't know they were happening all over the country. And they were. And so the whole idea of that issue's done, all this stuff, is just another way that they use to try to push things aside. We're not giving up on the IRS. We're not giving up on Benghazi. And if you look at how far we get, they held people back from testifying. They keep people from us. They hide them. There was a Army officer who we could not find, and they would not tell us where he was. And finally, I think that when he was a day or two before his retirement here, just about a week or so ago, we finally got him to come and testify. That somebody told him to stand down on Benghazi. So just know that you're not going to hear any of that reported anywhere. But we're doing it. And we're step by step working through it. And speaking of step by step, just understand, we have never received and will not receive the Senate Comprehensive Immigration Plan. It's never been sent to the House. They had a vote. But Harry Reid has held on to that bill. He knows it's unconstitutional. He cannot start a taxing bill, a bill that raises money. He can't. So it's never been sent to us. We don't have it. And so people say, what are you going to do on the Senate? It's not, we'll never have that bill. We're going to do a step-by-step approach, just like we're doing with these others. We're going to move things through the proper committees. We're not having gangs put together bills. We just take up issues. the first issue, the most important issue, and the only issue until it's solved is border security. Done. And you say, well, how are we going to do that? We're not doing anything until we have the border secured. That's the on-off switch. We're not doing anything else. And so you say, well, a wall doesn't work. Yes, but a wall works with enforcement, and that's what we want. We want a plan. We don't want to just take $46 billion and throw it at it and say, okay, here's enough for a wall. Hire 30,000 border security people, and that'll be enough, and the border's secure. No, no. And we're not going to have the Department of Homeland Security have the on-off switch to say it's secure now, because we did that back when Reagan he got tricked, and they did in 1986. The border was supposed to be secure, never happened. They just skipped it. So what this says is, and you'll see this coming, step-by-step approach, that the border has to be secure. It has to be affirmed by the Government Accountability Office. And the real key is within 100 miles of the border Patrol and other enforcement officers can work and actually drive. Right now, this is how kingdoms work in the federal government. The Department of Agriculture, Department of Interior own those pieces of property close to the border within 100 miles. Lots of them, lots of acres, lots of square miles. And they won't allow law enforcement to go on that without permission. You can't secure a border if you can't patrol it. So we're saying, no, they get to patrol. They have the upper hand, not the Department of Interior, not the Department of Agriculture. Then, just know that 40% of the people who are here got in the country lawfully through a visa. They just never went home. And you say, well, why can't we arrest them? We can't, because it's not a crime. It's not a misdemeanor. So why did Arizona get their hands slapped by the court for for detaining people? Because they were detaining people, but they had no charges they could bring against them. And so we're changing that. So there's the internal enforcement. So there's the security of the border, and that's got to be proven to the Government Accountability Office using our criteria with a checklist that says this is what a secure border is. And then we have interior enforcement, not just by the Department of Homeland Security. We want state, this is an issue for the local, federal. We want the state officers and the local law enforcement officers to be able to also enforce the federal law. And that's what the courts have said no, but we're going to give them the authority to do that. So it's not going to be just Department of Homeland Security, ICE, and it's going to be local sheriffs, police, and state law enforcement. They're going to be enforcing the border. That's number two. We can't do anything until we do those two things. We've got to have a secure border. We've got to have interior enforcement, or we'll have people staying, just getting a visa and then not going home. And I could go through other things, but that's what you're going to see out of the House. You're not going to see a vote on the Senate bill. That's not even going to come to the House. It's not. So don't even worry about that. We're going to do a bill step by step, goes through these issues. And those are the two most important. And those are going to be hard to do. But that's what we're going to do. And then there is the whole idea of E-Verify. And I think there has to be some component that says you're lawfully here. And we've got to be able to check that. And so if we require, there is technology available to do that. And so you can't get a job unless you're verified. And if you are, great, you can have one. If not, you can't. And then the incentive of being here is pretty low because you can't be employed without it. So those are a few things on immigration, on Obamacare. Just know, I'm against Obamacare. I believe that it's doing damage and will. I think it's harmful for this country. I have three principles. The doctor you choose, the care you need, at a price you can afford. That's it. And this bill does not do any of this. It doesn't. So we can keep our doctor. We can keep our plan. It would cost less money. All these things. None of that's happening. None of it. And they're taking over $700 billion out of the Medicare trust fund to pay for these subsidies are going to be given to people up to 400% of poverty who make $94,000 a year. They're going to get a subsidy for their health care insurance based on the money they take out of the Medicare Trust Fund. So all we did, I mean, we have, people say, well, you voted 40 times to repeal it. Well, 40 times to repeal all or part of it. There were a couple of votes to repeal all of it, but there were a lot of votes that were small. Just know that 7 of those were approved by the Senate and signed by the President, because they know this law is flawed too. They do. So they keep saying these 40, but wait a minute. We had bipartisan support to get rid of a bunch of these things and defund a bunch of these items. And the President ended up signing it. Now, it was a part of a bigger package and he had to eat it. It wasn't like he just gleefully picked up his pen and signed it. But at least we forced him to do that. Are you going to read about that in the paper? No. Amazingly, it was the Washington Post, though, that reported that. I was shocked. They did a fact check on the deal and said, hey, wait a minute, there's a bunch of these things that became law. So all of that, and there were lots of questions about it, and just know those are the things. Know too that I'm not, I just like I told you, I'm not going to participate in the actual Obamacare subsidies that they're giving to Congress. I haven't yet, and I'm not going to. And then, overall, I'm going to tell you something about the culture in Washington. And hopefully this explains a lot of things. And it's something that I feel very strongly about. The culture in Washington has a set of principles. Now, I don't think they're very good principles, but they do have a set of principles. I'm going to give you one of them, and just give you a couple little examples about why it's bad and how we can fix it. There's a principle that says, if it's appropriated, spend it. That's a principle. So no matter how much money is appropriated, then you spend it. There's no incentive not to. Now, I'm not talking about, in my example, fraud, waste, and abuse. Because fraud and abuse are both punishable. I'm talking about one thing, waste. And I'm going to give you an example. There is money appropriated for every member of Congress to run their office. I told you I had 4 offices here locally. I have 1 in Washington. I have staff. We have computers. We have desks. We're open for business. We've got a constituent service facility that we do, and we work and try to solve problems for people, all of that. And there's money to do that, and it's appropriated. And I'm given that money, and I don't have to ask the Speaker or the Leader of the Senate or the President on getting that money. I get it. But on the other hand, if I want to prove that you don't have to necessarily spend all the money, I felt like it was incumbent on me to act, since I wanted to prove that that wasn't a true principle. So by the end of this year, I'll have turned back over $1 million. And that, I've done it the last 2 years, and then at the end of this year, I'll give back more, and it'll take me for that period of time over $1 million. 30% of the money. Was it fraudulently spent by my former person that preceded me? No. Was it waste? It was just waste. And other congressmen who have adopted that, many, almost all, have adopted the principle that it's appropriated to spend it, that you don't have to. So they're able to turn back that money. I'm going to give you one little place where there could be savings. Because some of them, the chairman of the House Administration, I started sharing with her some things that she could do that would save money that we did. She was shocked, but she said, tell me more. So, let me give you one. There's a sheet of paper that I get, and I check off the services that I would like to get as a member of Congress. And really, when you first elect it, you know what you're doing, and you're just kind of getting all this stuff, and they ask you what color carpet you want, if you're going to change that or something, check off some color, whatever. Anyway, there were 4 boxes on one of the questions. And basically, the lead-in is you can get a free repair of your computer. I use the word free loosely, but you can get a free repair anytime. So there are 4 vendors, and each one of those vendors, there's a box by them, and you can check which one you wanted to get the service from. And they're approved vendors. You can't go outside that box. Well, it ended up that in the end, I decided not to check any of those boxes because the lowest price one was $1,288 a month for 15 computers, regular computers, nothing rubbed up about it. And so multiply that out for the 2 years I was there, it was over $32,000 for the cost. I could have bought the computers 4 times over. So I didn't check the box. It came back. You forgot to check the box. I didn't forget to check the box. I meant not to check the box. You don't want the service. No, I don't want the service. So that savings is together. Now, please understand that when we're talking about the $1 million, it's not just me, but if you started multiply it by 435 members of Congress, multiply it by the Senate, who gets probably 4 to 5 times the amount of money we get, multiply it by that. And now, think about this one thing that I found, these computer services. Every computer, not just in Congress, but in executive branch is covered by service. So we can get them fixed. Free. Free. And so it's billions of dollars. And it has nothing to do with anything other than waste. And you know why it's wasted? Because they adopt the principle. If it's appropriated, spend it. Hey, why wouldn't a member of Congress go ahead and spend it? If the money's already appropriated, it's theirs to spend, just go ahead and go spend it and buy yourself a service or whatever. You know how I tricked them? I had Garrett go out and buy me some two new computers. He's back there, and so now we have 2 extra. And so if one breaks, I already got the extra. You know how much it cost me? $850. So you got $850 each for these 2 new laptop computers with 2-year on-site warranties. And so you get new computers, you save almost $30,000, and you don't have to adhere to the principle of its appropriated spending. So I would hope that would answer a lot of the questions. That one principle is bad. And I hope somehow we can figure out a way to incentivize. I told a group this morning, if I could just, out of $1, if we could just save 50 cents or 75 cents, I would gladly give the other 25 cents to them to not go waste, but to give some bonuses or something. Because it's saving the 75 cents or whatever it is extra, then great. I think let them have some of it. But somehow, some way, we got to get to a point where we can turn that principle around to say we're going to reward people who don't spend all the money that's appropriate. And if we do, that's one way to save money without cutting one program or getting all people stirred up about anything. It's just cutting waste. And it's important. It is. And all I can say is I did the best I could to prove it on a personal level that philosophy and that principle is wrong. So there was another little issue that I wanted to discuss, a couple of other little ones. I can't remember what it was. VA hospital. Yeah, I'll talk about that. Okay, so the VA hospital is being built in Orlando. It's already 2 years behind schedule. It should have already opened. And I've called about this, but Gary helped me find a little provision in law that says that the person that's over the construction of all the VA in the whole country, all the major hospitals being built, plus the smaller clinics are being built, is supposed to be a graduate, engineer, or architect with a master's or a bachelor or master's degree, and have extensive experience in the construction